Ka kia I chat duasak yech ayachat lukahadi nachatiti. Athna dakahidi yechit shangupedi yadi ayachat kunana nachatiti. My Tlingit name is Kakia, and my English name is Rose Demientieff Worl. I am from the Raven Sockeye Clan on my father's side, and from my mother's side, I am Deg Hit'an Athabascan from Fairbanks, Alaska. I am a visual mixed media artist, and I live in Juneau, Alaska. My brother Rico and I own Trickster Company, and we are an innovative Indigenous graphic design and art gift shop. I've just always been into art, didn't plan to be an artist, but it was something that I just always loved doing. Rico and I, and our other brother Kyle, we would build tiny little miniature shops where we'd build tiny little mini products that we would sell, and those were our toys growing up. So we've been doing that since we were kids, and it was just a fun way to be visualizing what something could look like and then creating it out of paper and glue and crayons. My mom taught me to bead at a young age. My grandma taught me to sew. It's our atu, it's our regalia. It's ingrained in being Indigenous, being creative. I just completed a mural commemorating Elizabeth Pradovich. She is a Tlingit activist that during the 1940s helped advocate and pass the first anti-discrimination law in Alaska. We never learned about her in school, but my family made sure that I knew who she was. For me, as an Indigenous woman from her clan, I'm super honored and proud to commemorate her, to deck her out in some of my brother's designs and earrings, and put some formline design behind her, which is the Raven Sockeye, our clan crest. It's polytab, which is the same material they use to make parachutes, but it's primed, and a high-res image is printed onto it. It was in panels, and I had each panel hanging up on this wall and would paint and try to make the strokes line up between each panel. And so that was a giant shifting of puzzle piecing and Tetrising in the little studio, and having 5 people in here rotating, and you paint that, you paint the star, you paint the moon, you do silver, you do black, you do gold. I was really touched to have just the most incredible crew, amazing apprentices. They were all Indigenous and pursuing the arts, and they helped me paint the mural, they helped me install the mural. We applied the mural cloth in panels on the wall with adhesive. You apply it on, and then you use a scraper to scrape out the remnants behind the goop, the adhesive goop behind it. It's very messy. And there were some gaps that were left that I had to go in and hand paint and do color matching to make the seams go away. And then the weather fluctuated, and so it started bubbling. And so I had to go back up there with a needle and clear the bubbles. And I'll probably have to do that next summer as well, go in and check the bubbles again, do touch-ups, and then do another 1 or 2 layers of sealant. As a fellow clan member, as a participant in my culture, I'm inspired by Elizabeth Pradovich, that she was a proud Indigenous woman that stood very strong during a time that it must have been very, very difficult to. So I'm super proud that I can be reflecting that in the art, in her mural, and hopefully in myself as well, in the way I carry myself and the way I am proud and stay strong with my artwork. It's incredibly rewarding to see it up there, and for people in the community to come up to me and say that they're proud to see it. It's a big piece, and I'm just super honored that I can commemorate Elizabeth Pradovich. I like the challenge, but there were definitely multiple days that I broke down and had imposter syndrome. It's difficult to be a female or Indigenous doing the art career full time. I live with anxiety, I live with a lot of ups and downs, and it does affect my art and my productivity. And it's not something I can force to go away, but I can acknowledge that it's there when it is, and that it's there to challenge my strength, and that I've gotten through it once before, I can do it again. One of the greatest moments in my life was being able to have a mentor, being able to be an apprentice and study under someone I admire and feel moved by. My mentor is Robert Davidson. He's a Haida artist based in BC, Canada. Robert taught me about the power of visualization. If I can visualize something and I'm willing to do the work and put in the time and the effort, I can do it. I hope to instill something similar and also to, motivate our young people to realize they can achieve what they want with their lives. Be professional and stay motivated and do a good job and be proud to do it. When you look at formline artwork, you can always see a really well executed design is well balanced. Your eye will flow throughout the piece. I think every Tlingit person can say balance is the structure of our kinship. You look at, we have two moieties that are considered opposites, the raven and the eagle. And the raven and eagle clans always balance one another out. That balance is reflected in the art, it's reflected in our regalia, how we acknowledge one another. This reciprocal relationship of creating harmony and balance between opposites. My thing is exploring what does that mean for color. When I went to school, I learned a lot about color theory, and it's just endless amounts of exploration of how color can balance, contrast, be dynamic, be subtle. It can really define and create a piece and say something. It can be bright, it can be screaming, shiny, iridescent. And the raven in me really likes the shiny and bright. I hope that I'm being a good role model for Indigenous and non-Indigenous people of how we can create a relationship and share Indigenous values and stories globally in a healthy and meaningful way. And I hope that a lot of my artwork raises the value of Indigenous art and the awareness. Every supporter that helped make the mural happen and continue to support me through my art, I want to say that I'm grateful and I'm thankful for that. And I'm looking forward to more art coming, not just from me, but other community members. I hope this is just the beginning.
Hello.
Hello.
Crystal, Gunesh Chish, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. Girls Cheese.
Everyone who's listening, my name is Sarah, and I'm a museum exhibition planner and designer, and I work all over the state of Alaska. And what I really do is help people tell their stories. And with these artist projects, I've been so fortunate to learn from people that we admire in Alaska, these artists. And so we're here to talk to Crystal a little bit more about her story. And I hope that you will all send us your questions. I have a few to start us out, but then we'd really like to hear from you. What would you like to know about Crystal's work and life here? So Crystal, I have admired your work for so long, and of course your most your new mural is makes our community so bright and happy to see. So thank you for doing that. You talked a little bit about that process. And I know that it was important to you to bring in interns and to teach the next generation of artists, Indigenous artists. Can you tell me a little bit about how that worked, how you found those people, and I know that maybe there's some the work that needs to be happening this summer because that was last summer that you put up the mural.
Yeah. So a lot of how our artwork is passed on is through the mentor apprenticeship. It's really important in Alaska to have that apprenticeship and that guidance, especially when it comes to passing on traditional design or cultural philosophy and art. And so having apprentices has really greater meaning to me. I also had my mentor who took me on for 3 years in Vancouver, BC. And that really helped guide me and give me structure. And so it's really just absolutely crucial to have apprentices to help pass on to the next generation this information. And for this particular project, I wanted to take on Alaska Native artists that are up and coming and take themselves very seriously of wanting to move into this career field, but may not necessarily have the experience of installing a mural before. So what I did was I sort of put a word of mouth call out there and talk to friends and family. And in the Alaska Native community, everyone knows everyone. And so word of mouth gets around really quickly. And I also knew a couple of artists that I'd gone to school with or that I'd met through school. I went to the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which gave me a huge network for meeting Indigenous artists. And so I already had a really great database and platform of apprentices that I could take on. And I'm hoping to have more and more in the future.
Awesome. That's such a wonderful thing that you do for artists and for our communities is help them grow. So you mentioned you were going to have to put a couple more coats on the mural this summer. Tell me about
So this summer, it's a tricky juggle because my life is fully packed schedule. I have multiple projects going on, and so one of the promises that I made, in other words, the contract that I agreed to the city, is that I would help maintain the mural for the next 10 years. And so that requires getting a lift and getting up close and taking a look at it. There is some bubbling that's happening, which is natural. When we installed it, we had to do it in 3 days. It was a 7-day project that we did in 3 days because of the rain. Juneau, Alaska is a temperate rainforest, so it does rain a lot. It makes being a muralist really, really challenging and really stressful. But yeah, the plan for this summer, actually in 2 weeks when I go back to Juneau, I'll be working on the lift, doing some maintenance, wiping it down, cleaning it up. And then this fall, I'm working on a mural plaque that will be installed, a link on my website so that people that go see the mural, they'll know who she is, and there'll be a QR code that they can follow to my website and learn more about Elizabeth Pradovich, about the project, watch this video, and learn more about my apprentices as well. It's ongoing. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I had never seen a mural project that wasn't just directly painted onto the substructure. So that was a really interesting technique that you employed.
It's really, really neat. It's called Mural Provisions. It's a company that's based in Philadelphia. And the gentleman that started it, Ben Volta, he has been doing this for decades, and he's proven that this type of mural won't fade and will last up to 30 years. That's in Philadelphia conditions, so we'll see how the southeast and the Taku winds, treat Elizabeth Pradovich on the wall. But it's in my hometown, so I'll be there to check up on it. And I'm working on getting the city to install lights on it for nighttime and winter, and maybe some bird spikes right above it, because I noticed there's bird poo happening. I'm like, okay, Can't clean it off every year, but so we're kind of figuring out. We're learning by doing.
Yeah, yeah. They're probably attracted to your bright colors too.
Yeah.
Crystal, I want to. You mentioned the Tlingit concept of a'u, and I wondered if you would explain what that means to our audience and how that informs your work.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this question. In the video, it was very. I didn't really get to talk about it. A'u is our ceremonial regalia. It is, we consider our regalia our ancestors. You might be familiar with the Chilkat robe. It's a robe that takes 40 hours a week to weave for an entire year to create. And we use them for dancing and for ceremony. We consider our robes our ancestors, are passed on in these regalia. So we call that our a'u. We take care of our regalia. My family's regalia is in my grandma's box. We have a cedar box that we keep everything in, and we take very good care of it. And so when you're dancing in your a'u and you're wearing that, you're wearing your ancestors, and you're carrying them on your shoulders, and they're carrying you in that regalia. So a lot of our regalia also has our clan crests on it. So in the beginning of the video, I introduced myself, Kukahadi Yukhatuasak, which translates to, I am from the Raven Sockeye Clan. And so my clan crest is actually a Sockeye design. I actually have a tattoo of the salmon. That's a Sockeye salmon design that I did. And so I would have that on the back of my robe, or maybe on an apron, or maybe it's beaded somewhere on my regalia, but it's something that I wear with pride. So when I'm dancing and I'm singing, I'm never doing it alone. I'm doing it with my clan, and we're doing it together. So it's a really beautiful thing. A'u.
A'u. It is such a wonderful concept to carry your ancestors with you. I love that. Okay, Crystal, will you tell me what are you doing now? What's next for you?
Yeah, so I have many projects in the work. Actually, next week I'm flying to Sitka, Alaska, and I will be working on designing a basketball court that we're going to paint. It's a little bit tricky again with the rainforest. It is projected to rain, so it might be postponed. Story of my life, but if we could show the picture of the artwork, please, I could talk a bit more about it. Lovely. So this is, you can see the basketball court lines. Those are actually going to be painted white, the court lines. And this particular design, it's not representing any sort of figure or anything in particular, because I wanted to create something for the Sitka community, but I didn't want to overstep my boundaries by doing any particular animal. I don't want to accidentally misrepresent anyone's clan or clan crest. So I'm very aware of designs that I should not use and designs that are okay to use. This particular design is just abstract. There's it's really just a dedication to the art itself. Pacific Northwest Coast Indigenous art is known as formline design. So this was really just my contribution and absolute love for formline design that I wanted to create in this piece. And I'm really excited that Sitka will be having this. This is an outdoor court. And I'll also be designing a matching basketball a year from now that will match with it, that we will be producing and giving out to Sitka community and helping fundraise for children's basketball camps in Southeast Alaska.
Oh, fantastic. Basketball in Southeast is a very important part of our culture, and yeah,
It's
awesome.
huge. And that's another reason I'm really, really wanting to do this project. It's basketball is really, really big in Native communities throughout the United States, and especially in Alaska, especially in Southeast. We're really proud of our basketball. We have tournaments every year, and a lot of Tlingit people get really hyped into basketball. I also design basketballs with my brother, and they're very, very popular. It's really cool to see young kids in the village, Native and non-Native, playing with basketballs and playing basketball with formline design on it. It just really helps young children feel proud to be Indigenous or be growing up in Indigenous community or help support Indigenous art. It's just such a beautiful forum to share. So I'm really proud of this basketball court, and we'll see how the rain treats us.
Yeah, when you initially told me basketball court, of course I assumed inside, but yeah, adding an outside component makes this all the more difficult to plan. You mentioned your brother Rico and your company, Trickster Company. Will you tell us about that? How's your how's that collaboration, and how do you make a living as an artist?
Absolutely. So our website is trickstercompany.com, and we're a small family-owned business based in Alaska. My brother Rico Worl and we started Trickster Company as Trickster Company skateboards, and what we used to do was hand paint skateboard decks and then sell them to people that would hang them on their wall as art. And Rico really wanted to manufacture them and have kids and people skating on them and not just hanging them on their wall, but also make it affordable and accessible. Just like in the modern world, you see clothing design, you see product design. Formline design definitely applies to that, and it looks really cool on everything. And so we're like, how can we do this? And so we expanded Trickster Company. We are an innovative Indigenous graphic design and art gift shop located online. We used to have the brick and mortar store downtown Juneau, but since COVID happened, we shut down our physical store and went 100% online, which was actually a really good thing for us, because then we could focus on online sales. The world went virtual, so it worked out really well for us. We're doing great. And my brother and I are a really great team. We love designing together. I'm really, really lucky to have a family that's really excited about small business and entrepreneurship in Alaska. And the Alaska community has been extremely supportive of supporting us in what we do. And then we like to do our part of contributing every basketball that sells. We will contribute a basketball to a kids basketball camp. So there's various projects and things that we have our foot in the door with that is not just about design and art, but also contributing to a community, making art accessible, making it cool and modern, and on utilitarian things, on yoga pants, basketball, skateboards, playing cards, things that we use and not just hang on our wall as art, but engage with and have fun with. And it is a really, really great, it's a really great life creating. And we also work to create a platform for Indigenous artists to collaborate with us, to promote them on our website. There is a link on trickstercompany.com if you're interested in supporting other Indigenous artists. We do have blogs and links to other Native artists that you can support. But yeah, it's all about creating a platform for other artists. It's not about competition. It's not about this belongs to us. It's really an opportunity to share and embrace, and it's really fun.
That's awesome. Crystal, what does it mean to you to be a modern Indigenous artist? I know that some of the materials that you're using, for instance, creating yoga pants, is one way that you're doing that. How do you feel about that?
I feel very lucky. I'm very proud. My family had a very strong upbringing for me and my siblings and my cousins. Every summer we had to live with our grandma, our aunties and uncles so that we could learn about fishing, about hunting, about our atu, our regalia, participate in ceremonies, know how to introduce ourselves using our chill cat voice is what my grandma calls it, and knowing how to present ourselves as Indigenous people. So we had this really interesting upbringing of cultural value being passed on and knowledges and practices being passed on, but also it was required that we have to go to college. It doesn't matter where we go, it doesn't matter what we study, but the requirement in our family is that the bare minimum is you have to go and get a degree and use it and do something with it. And with our upbringing, we just felt it was natural to get a degree in something that we could bring back home to Alaska and reciprocate with the community. So yeah, it is really significant, important to me that I am Indigenous and know who I am and where I come from. I also think it's really, really cool to be in the modern day. I wouldn't choose to live in any other era than right now, because with technology right now, with laser cutting, with 3D printing, even with, you look at the pigments they're using for paint, it's insane. It's wild. It's blindly fluorescent. It's so exciting to be able to put my hands on anything and everything that I can to create art. There's just so much more abundance of opportunity and materials and technology that I can basically geek out on and play with and create art. And formline is really wonderful. It's a beautiful art that it looks great on everything. And so right now I'm sort of in this phase of exploring color and how to create paintings and imagery with using really, really bright fluorescent colors. And when I travel a lot, I'm very influenced by color and the world I see around me. And so being in the modern day, I get to travel and see the world. The ancestors back in the day had to canoe their way around, and that's incredible. And I feel very lucky I can use modern tools. I can jump on an airplane and go visit somewhere and create art. So it's really, really interesting. I feel like I'm living in two worlds, the traditional cultural world and the modern world. They're very, very different, but I think it's really beautiful where they overlap.
Yeah. Crystal, the projects that you've been working on, the mural for the city, the basketball court in Sitka, they're your artwork, but they're also for other people. They're, commissions and contracts, and I know you do exhibitions. And if you had, all the time and money in the world, what do you want to accomplish as an artist in your life?
Yeah, I really love this question. And one of the things I really struggle with is I can't have enough time. I would love to have more time to go fishing and hunting more, and participate more in the realm of creating regalia. There's something really powerful about being able to create regalia and seeing someone dance and sing in your regalia. That's really beautiful. So that's one thing I really, really want to do, is be more free to be out fishing and hunting as well. Fishing and hunting is like really hard on your back, so it's hard to maintain, and it's also hard on my hands as well. I'd love to be better at filleting a fish or butchering a seal. When we go out fishing and hunting, it's a really beautiful process. When we take an animal, we give it water, we give it thanks, and nothing is wasted, and it literally feeds an entire community of people, each animal that's giving its life to you. And that also is reciprocated in my artwork. So when I go fishing and hunting, I have this relationship that I build with these animals. I kind of study their behavior, their movements, and it influences how I draw a salmon. It influences how I draw a killer whale. Seeing how they behave, seeing how they move and arch, seeing their personalities. It's just such a beautiful thing. So I'd love to spend more time being out there. And I'd also love more time to take on more apprentices. I love the mentor apprenticeship relationship, but I know that I'm very busy right now with my current projects, which I'm really grateful for. I love working in public art, despite its challenges in Southeast Alaska. I really hope to do more projects, but I also hope to make more time to be at home.
Yeah. Crystal, I have a question from our audience. Do you have a favorite painter?
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious, but Robert Davidson, my mentor, he had such an influence on me, not just because he's my mentor, but before I met him and before I apprenticed with him, I jokingly call him the Yoda of formline design. He's a Haida artist that's based in BC. He's incredible. His mentor was Bill Reed, also another favorite painter, printmaker, sculptor of mine. Just did incredible dedications to formline. And not only did he really commit this amazing collection of art with formline, but learning from Robert, I learned about philosophy, and the philosophy of the art also applies to the philosophy of my life. One thing that Robert Davidson taught me about was the power of visualization. If you really want to see something done, or you really want to achieve something, you visualize yourself already being there, already doing it, and having done it. If you can see it, you can do it. Because a lot of people focus so much on the process of how they're going to get there, that it almost stifles your success. If you're too focused on worrying, oh, I'm too worried about the rain, I'm too worried about the cost or the help I'm going to need. There's a lot of things to worry about in public art, but the bigger picture is that I visualize this basketball court, and I need to do what I need to do to get there. I need to jump out of my comfort zone and ask people for help, reach out to funders. This project is actually funded through Project Backboard. They have a really fun Instagram, Project Backboard. They find basketball communities that love to play basketball, and that have basketball courts that are heavily used but need renovation. And then they find funders and local artists to come together, design a court and renovate a court. And so I love this idea. But yeah, back to the question, Robert Davidson, Bill Reed. Yeah, let's see. I also really, really love Salvador Dali is probably my favorite, like, historically European artist. I really love the surreal aspect. But yeah, there's so many names. That's to name a few. Thank you for that question.
Yeah. Robert Davidson and Bill Reed are both, masters of formline, and it's a seemingly simple, but very, very complex art. How long do you feel it took you to learn? Is it something that you're going to be learning your entire life? How did you become comfortable with that form?
I'm not comfortable with it yet. I don't expect to be comfortable with it. I don't want to be, because I feel like it's a really beautiful design, but it also has a lot of structure. And studying formline from the books, how I started was by looking at all these books of formline design and art, going to museums and visiting their archives. Some of our atu and our objects are in museums. A lot of these items were stolen. A lot of them are being repatriated, and then there's some museums that are actually working with Indigenous people to help hold on to these items to take care of them, but also lend them to the clans that they belong to for ceremonial purposes. So museums have a very interesting relationship with Indigenous people, but I also have used museums a lot to help learn about the artwork, because finding a mentor is not always the easiest thing. It's actually very challenging. So I took it upon myself to study through books and museums. If you see my house, I have a huge library of books of artwork. I could look at books all day of artwork. And then my brother Rico, he really helped me find the tools on the internet of how to learn formline. There's some really great videos out there. And then my brother also was really into books, and so I learned from him, and eventually got to a point where I was like, okay, I went to college, and I went to school, I got my degree, and then after that, I knew I wanted to find a mentor, but it was really challenging to find a mentor. As soon as I found a mentor, he helped me really learn. You start with learning the ABCs, the principles of formline design, and then what Robert says is you need to put in 10,000 hours to be able to even grasp on understanding something or anything, whatever it is you want to learn. Start with studying it and practicing it for 10,000 hours. So finally, after that point, I did my mentorship. And to this day, I still feel like I have a lot to learn about formline. I sometimes still very, consider myself an amateur. I definitely don't consider myself a master of the art. That's more like Robert. But even Robert, he is such a humbled man. And Robert has said, I am still a student of the art. I am still learning from it every day, because he chooses to study it. So I think there's abundance of knowledge, and if I'm ever bored or feel fully confident or comfortable in the artwork, I'm doing something wrong. It's part of one of the greatest things about being an artist is being forever curious and wanting to learn.
That's so great to hear. I love seeing your formline designs, and I have another question from our audience. I think, how do you use art to express your own world? How do something that you are only seeing in your mind, creating your own imaginary world and expressing it on the paper through many colors?
Yeah, well, this is a fun question. I feel, my family always recognized I was creative. My grandma loves to tell the story of when I was 3 years old, I was running around, I was screaming, I have all this energy. I still run around and scream. But she said that one thing that got my attention and stopped me in my feet was bright, bold, contrasting colors. And so I think that's just always been something that's moved me is high contrast, bold shapes and forms have always been captivating to me since a young age. And I love interpreting that through artwork, through drawing, through dancing, through my singing. Anything that I do, it seems to overlap with the theme of bold, bright, and contrasting. So I really absolutely love that I can apply my movements to the artwork. I've done a lot of dancing in the past and performing on aerial apparatus for circus, like aerial hoop and aerial silks. And what I did for a while was I studied Tlingit raven stories and studied how ravens move, and then interpret that through my dancing. And then I also study how ravens move and interpret that through how I draw them, how I make them in flight, or how they're they're like their head might be tilted in an art piece, or they might be like tucked in a certain way. It's very like raven behavior. Ravens are mischievous. They're tricksters. They're always up to something. They're very curious beings. I think it's very appropriate that I'm from the Raven moiety and Sockeye Clan, because I'm very curious, mischievous. Also, I drink a lot of water as a salmon. Yeah, I really love that question. Thank you.
Here's another one. What do you think about modern self-expression in art in social spheres around the world?
Social spheres?
Yeah, I'm thinking different groups of people, maybe how they're sharing with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm heavily influenced by artwork from all over. It's another reason why I really believe that traveling is really good for human beings. Um, I've traveled a lot, and it's really influenced um, how I create art, how I perceive the world, how I carry myself, how I even say hello to people. It's really opened me up to seeing um, what the world is like, all the beauty and the pain that's out there, and what people are doing in terms of public art, seeing the murals. Last winter, I went to Oaxaca City um, and studied. I did an artist residency there. And you can kind of see from this past year, my color palette has become a lot more vibrant. And being in Mexico, they use a lot of very vibrant colors and pigmentations. Um, So absolutely, I think it's really important that artists and all people do exchanges and visit and see other cultures and have culture exchanges. That's another beautiful thing I feel about being an artist, is that I'm not just creating, art, ceremonial regalia and items that are kept at home that have great meaning to Native people, but I also have this important role of sharing my knowledge and cultural values with people all over the world. I think our culture is absolutely powerful. It's beautiful. There's values there that I think the whole world can embrace and share. And I feel that way about other cultures as well. So I think it's really important, that culture exchange, that art exchange. Otherwise it'd be, we're going to be in conflict. We have been. And so I think, working and studying and learning from each other has an important role in our future, especially for our next generations. That's why I always encourage my apprentices to travel, get out, especially if you're living out in the village. It can be very difficult to see that there is a world out there. Um, that's a great question. Thank you.
Crystal, can you talk a little bit about um, what cultural appropriation means when we're talking
Mhm.
about all these different cultures that we visit and are inspired by, and but how sometimes uh, there's a difference between appreciating a culture and appropriating it.
Yeah. So looking at historically how, in particular, Indigenous people have been treated, um, in the context that, colonization happened, racism happened, appropriation has happened since the beginning as well. And what cultural appropriation is when um, non-Indigenous people see Indigenous culture and decide to take from it without consulting or engaging or doing the research, which there's the world of the internet. So, there's very little excuse to do some research on the internet. But essentially taking what doesn't belong to you and using it, replicating it. Um, for example, there's non-Indigenous people that like to wear headdresses for fun at festivals. There's also uh, logos, the Redskins, sport teams. So a lot of these are really great examples of what cultural appropriation looks like. Um, and I think it's really important to talk about it, even if it's hard and uncomfortable for a lot of people. I think it's really important that we talk about cultural appropriation. What does that mean for me as a business owner who creates leggings? I want all people of every background and every culture to feel proud to wear leggings with my artwork on it. Um, it's a really weird balance because I'm a modern artist, and I like to consider myself living in the modern day, but I'm also Indigenous, and very like proud of where I come from, and very protective of protecting our culture and passing it on to our next generation. But I also believe there is a healthy way of sharing this with the world. Um, and what I always tell people, they come into Trickster Company and they want to buy some leggings and they want to wear them, but they don't want to culturally appropriate. People always ask me that. And I say, absolutely, you can absolutely wear Trickster Company leggings, or Indigenous designs. You can wear them as long as they're created by Indigenous people. And, because there's a lot of companies out there that have taken Native designs and it's not theirs, and then they slap it on something and then they replicate it. And it actually looks really, really bad if like I've seen a lot of bad formline on clothing by big companies, and it doesn't look good, but it is in demand in the market. People really do want to wear it. It's a beautiful art. So I think, it's really important to support Indigenous artists, and you can do that by repping Indigenous designs that are made by Indigenous designers, and then telling people, "Oh wow, I really like your outfit. Where did you get it? Oh, I'm wearing Bethany Yellowtail. This is where I got it. This is her website. I'm wearing Jamie Okuma. This is an Indigenous artist that, this is her beadwork." So I think using the guidance of Indigenous people, consulting with Indigenous people. There's also like people who have been raised in Indigenous communities, or people that go to visit Indigenous communities and just engage and meet people. Don't be afraid to ask the question. Don't be afraid to get to know and meet Indigenous people and ask what are the boundaries, And this is not a black and white question. It's, I can't say that I'm right on behalf of every Indigenous person, but this is generally how I truly believe is supporting Indigenous artists means getting to know them, engaging with them, supporting them, and being proud to wear whatever you purchase from them or whatever you're repping for them or sharing or creating with them. You're sharing them and their story, and you're helping support Indigenous people. I think that's a really healthy, beautiful way of exchanging things. I travel to other countries and I buy artwork too, and I buy clothing, and I like to learn about where they come from, who made them, or who's the designer. I like to have that connection with them. I really try to veer away from fast fashion. I really try to veer away from shopping from really big corporate entities unless I do the research of, there's a lot of brands. They are starting to work more with Indigenous artists or other artists that are from different communities, and they create artist series. I really love when companies do that, because it really sets a healthy example in the world of how these big brands can step away from culture appropriating and start supporting and sharing cultures that are inclusive, which again is like a beautiful way of exchanging information and sharing opportunity for everyone. I think this is our time for opportunity.
Yeah, I love that, being so thoughtful about what you wear and connecting it to the maker.
Yeah, and I feel proud to represent those Indigenous artists. A lot of people are so afraid of being culturally appropriative, especially with the internet, and cancel culture is a whole thing. It's very intense. It almost makes people afraid to actually support Indigenous people. So don't step away from it because you're afraid of appropriating, but step and lean into it and do the research. And it's a little bit scary, but ask questions and engage.
Yes.
It's a challenge to be Indigenous and make art and put it out there, but I challenge you to step forward and learn what you can do and learn about Indigenous art. If you really truly love supporting it, wear it, rock it with pride, honor it.
Crystal, I have another question from our audience. What is the most beautiful animal to you? which ones inspire you the most? Which animals?
This might sound a little biased, but I think the raven.
Yeah, I thought you might say that.
I love the character of the raven. The ravens inspired a lot of traditional oratory, and to this day inspires modern designers. And everywhere I travel, the ravens behave differently. They have different dialects. They sound different. Their sizes are different. Even their feathers can be slightly different colored. The ravens in Juneau at home, they have sort of like a purple iridescence that reflect in their wings when it rains. They wake me up every morning at 5 a.m. They scream. They don't caw and coo. They scream in Juneau, and so and they're just their nature. They're very curious. They're very hungry. They love shiny things. Yeah, and they always have to know what's inside. If there's a box or a container, they always have to know what's inside of the container. And they're very, very smart, intelligent beings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here's a next one says, do you think that every country would be able to create something brightly and exclusively for self-expression? Do you think that every country has the ability to be self-expressive?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's the beautiful thing about being a human being. We have hands to create, and they were given to us for a reason. And every country is completely different. Every culture is completely different. I think diversity is really important. If you look at, even when I was studying biology, the thing that really amazed me about biology is diversity in DNA is what made the strongest animals reproduce and recreate. And I think that can also apply to culture. I think again, cultural exchange is really important, but every country comes from somewhere that has strong roots in its culture and its belonging. Every person, every human comes from a country or a place or a community that they belong to and that has their history, whether it's your family you're from, your community you're from. Even if you're not Alaska Native and you were born and raised in Alaska, you belong to that community and you feel it. It's very powerful being connected to community and your upbringing and how you were raised. I think that's applies to countries as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope I don't know if I answered that question right, but
I think that was a great answer. Yeah. Crystal, we just have a few minutes left. Is there anything that we have forgotten to ask you? Is there anything you would like to share with us?
Gosh, I'm really honored to be here and speak for everyone, and thank you for watching my video. Sorry, there's a guy outside. Yeah. But yeah, I hope to challenge everyone that's out there that feels creative to be creative, to engage with your community where you're from, ask who you are, where you're from. That can be a scary question sometimes for a lot of people, but it's important to know who you are, where you come from, and I hope that just gives you direction of where you're going towards and what you're looking forward to. And again, if you feel that you really love Indigenous culture and art, I challenge you to look into it and lean into it, and get to know those artists. There's a whole world of wonderful artists out there. I really hope that I get to come to Moscow someday and see what it's all about. I actually have roots in Moscow. One of my great-great-grandfathers is Russian. It's actually where my mom says I get my curly hair from.
Oh.
But I've never been to Russia. I don't know any Russian, and so I don't have any connections to it, but I'm very curious to go and visit. I'm very curious to learn about the culture there, all the different cultures there. There's an abundance there, and there's really great. It's just amazing the indigenous cultures that are there as well. The Siberian Yupik. I'm forever curious and forever chasing to look into the answers. And sometimes we don't get to know the answers. That's okay, but I use that to fuel my artwork and my curiosity. It drives me. But please come to Alaska and visit. It's beautiful.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Well, Gunashchish Crystal, thank you so much for coming, and also to everyone that has been watching this and asking us these interesting and provoking questions. And we hope to bring you more of these profiles of Alaskan artists and continue this exchange, this cultural exchange. So thank you everyone for joining us today.